Third part. Ha ha ha. Everything has gone exactly as planned. It's unfortunate I had to wait an additional day, but I suppose that has only increased my ardor all the more. Standing on the same hilltop where Greco had encountered Ray Ginsei by day, the figure took the electronic binoculars from his eyes and laughed softly. With a white fang spilling over his red lips, it was none other than Count Magnus Lee. A carriage was parked by a tree, and the moonlight illuminated the werewolf Garou standing beside it in his Inverness. Naturally, he had his human face and form at the moment. He asked, "So, what shall we do next?" That should go without saying. We force our way into that miserable little hamlet and take the girl. That damn mayor of theirs undoubtedly plans on locking her in the asylum while he negotiates with me. But I shall have none of that. For all the inconveniences they've caused me thus far, I shall create more living dead in their village tomorrow night, and still more the night after that. Their children and their children's children shall have a tale to tell of the horror of the nobility. Consider it a gift to commemorate my nuptials. Upon our return, order the robots to commence preparations for the ceremony immediately. Yes, sir. Giving a magnanimous nod to his deeply bowing servitor, the Count was about to get into his carriage when he turned and asked, "How is Larmika?" "As you instructed, sire. She was punished with time-bewitching incense, and she appeared to be in severe pain as she was still lying on the floor of her room when I took my leave." "Is that so? Very well, then. If this serves to keep her from harboring any further thoughts of disobeying her father, then everything will once again be as it should. I merely wanted to take the human girl as my wife, to live forever, sucking the blood as it gushes from her pale-as-wax throat night after night. Transient guest. The words of our sacred ancestor do not apply to me, I dare say. The rest of my kind may face extinction, but the girl and I shall stay here forever, and hold the humans down with power and fear. Just you watch." Once again, Garou gave a deep nod. The Count shut the carriage door firmly from the inside. "Go. The dawn is nigh. Of course, I don't believe there shall be any need to burn it, but I have time-bewitching incense ready just in case." Neither the Count nor Garou had noticed that. Soon after D had been felled by Ray Ginsei's stake, a carriage had come from the woods on the opposite side of the farm and headed toward town. Page break. For some time after Greco left, only a refreshing breeze and the light of the moon held sway at the farm. The cattle were sleeping peacefully, but an unsettling chuckle suddenly arose in the otherwise silent, solemn darkness.
It's been a while since I got to take center stage. Eating spiders and making Baldy spill his guts is all well and good, but I want a little more time in the limelight. Of course, he and I might both be happier if I left things the way they stand now. But there's still things that need doing in this life. And I kinda like that firecracker and her squirt of a little brother. I'm loath to do this, but I guess I can bail him out once again.
By him, it meant D. The voice came from within the bushes. At the same time, something seemed to be moving around in there. Oh, it was the hand. The fingers. As if it possessed a mind of its own, The left hand Ray Ginsei had hacked from D and thrown away was now moving all 5 of its fingers. The hand had its back to the ground and its palm pointed to the sky. The surface of the palm rippled, like a lump of muscle was being pushed to the surface from the inside. But the truly startling part was still to come. A few creases shot across the surface of the lump. Depressions formed in the flesh in some places, while other parts swelled up, forming at last a human face. 2 tiny nostrils opened on the slightly crooked, aquiline nose, and on the lips twisted in a sarcastic smile they exposed teeth like tiny grains of rice. The disturbing tumor with a face took a breath, and then its hitherto closed eyelids snapped open.
Well, time to get started, I suppose.
With those words as a cue, the arm started to move. Though the nerves and tendons had been severed, the weird countenance carbuncle had the ability to reanimate the arm portion and make it do its bidding. The fingers of the prone hand swam in the air and grabbed hold of a branch of the shrubbery directly overhead. Clinging to the branch and pulling itself up, the hand flopped back to the ground, palm down.
Okay, time to take a little trip.
The 5 fingers curled like spiders' legs, and the wrists arched into the air, dragging the heavy forearm behind it. It cleverly wound its way through the bushes and inched toward D. When it came to the stump of his left arm, the fingers once again scurried around busily, turning to the right and matching both sides of the cut together perfectly. D had fallen on his back, so the palm of his hand naturally faced the sky. The countenance carbuncle's bizarre visage was left naked in the moonlight. And this is when it, the hand, began to act truly strange. It inhaled for a long time, like it was taking a deep breath. Given the relatively small size of D's palm, it seemed to have an incredible lung capacity. The wind whistled and howled as it coursed into the tiny mouth. After this amazing display of suctioning skill had gone on for a good 10 seconds, it paused for a breath and repeated the same behavior 3 more times. And then the countenance carbuncle did something even more wondrous. Cleverly flipping over from the elbow so that the palm faced down, the fingers sank into the ground and began tearing up the soil. Thanks most likely to D's steely fingertips, they scooped up the hard ground like it was mud, and before long there was a sizable amount of dirt into which the palm proceeded to shove its own face. In the hush, an eerie munching sound could be heard. The tumor was eating the dirt. By the light of the moon this unearthly repast continued, and several minutes later the mound of dirt had vanished completely. Where had it gone? Right into the countenance carbuncle's maw. But where in the world could it put all that dirt? The shape of the arm hadn't changed in the least, and yet the severed hand had consumed both the air and the earth. But toward what end? The downturned palm uttered a small burp.
Without water and fire, this may take a while, but there's not much we can do about that,
it said to itself, and then the whole arm abruptly reached for D's chest. It couldn't be. The 2 sides of the slice along D's arm were together again, even though reattaching the arm after both sides had bled dry should have been impossible. But the arm rose nonetheless. Then the countenance carbuncle said simply,
"This should be a lot faster than using my fingers."
With that, it opened its mouth wide and bit down on the end of the stake jutting from D's chest.
Ugh.
With a weird grunt, it pulled the stake right out. Disposing of the wooden implement with a flick of the wrist, the palm once again turned to the sky. The air howled. Once more it was being savagely sucked in. And though it was now clear it was being consumed just as the earth had been. Pale blue flames could be seen flickering deep in the cheeks of the captain's carbuncle every time it inhaled. With its third such breath, flames spouted from its mouth and nose. Earth, wind, fire, and water were commonly known as the four elements. Having consumed only two of them, earth and wind, the countenance carbuncle had turned them into heat within itself, and then into life force. And now it was pumping life itself, back into D's body. This gorgeous youth, the great vampire Hunter D, had a life force generator living in the palm of his hand. At some point the wind died down, and the tranquil farm was made all the more serene by the moon. But in one part of the farm the disturbing miracle continued, and the wound the stake had left in D's heart, a wound that was certain death for all descendants of vampires, gradually closed. Chapter 7. End.